us to see what impact that would be to not have that option. So we looked at that, and we looked at that was a discretionary move, and getting feedback from the officers that was an option that they didn't want to use. But going to the bigger question, which John asked, was generally when we do traffic stops, about 1 out of 3 stops should result in a citation. That's sort of the industry standard. We presented data before about neighboring cities, and we're a little above what the average is. But I think we're about the 60th percentile.
We're actually higher than that compared to a lot of cities in San Jose County. And we issue a lot more citations than many other cities.
And so we've also, remember, staff count. So we've been down to 2 officers. Our reserve force has been trying to backfill to do that. In December, quite frankly, for the winter, the flu bug hit our department, and our traffic officer, although it says it was working, this actually quite a number of days. With vacations, the weather, the inclement weather is actually, as you can see, that's one of the only months where we haven't seen a steady increase. You can notice from past reports up until December, we've seen a steady increase, 5 to 10% per month, in the number of traffic contacts and citations and what have you. So it has been increasing. There's always room for improvement. And with this jammer system, actually, Sergeant Copeland and I were just talking, we're going to discharge the batteries to use that on Holbrook starting tomorrow. So we want to put that out for a 7-day period to see what the results are there. So there's always room for improvement. So that's one of the things is also, it's just the number of officers out there. They're required to work about, you want them to work 25 to 35% of their unencumbered time when they're not answering calls for service and not just doing general patrol, actually doing traffic enforcement and working complaint areas. There's other additional areas other than the complaint areas. The complaint areas we list are the ones that come into us reported. We have our own system of complaint areas where we work continually like on Stockbridge. So regardless if somebody complains about Stockbridge, we actually work that routinely.
But we've got, what, 3 shifts?
Yeah.
So we've got 3 shifts.
2 shifts.
And
yeah. So there's 6 officers a day, plus a traffic officer.
6 officers a day. So even if we take the warnings and speeding tickets together, that's 82 in December. That means that we're not really giving many tickets, or we're not doing much about speed if you just look at those statistics. Because you divide it by 6.
It's also the threshold for issuing a citation as well. While we might contact someone for 5 miles over, and I've done that when I was working patrol for many years, but that doesn't necessarily mean it meets the threshold for a citation, which means then, because the traffic commissioners have a different threshold than say, put because that's actually much more accurate. We can stop them for 5 miles over, but we're not going to give a ticket for 5 miles over unless it's something in a school zone, weather, that type of thing, where the safe speed is going to be reduced below the speed limit.
We don't have any, I guess we're not allowed to give the police any quotas.
No, absolutely not. But that's why we kind of use the averages in the industry, because having taught traffic enforcement on citation psychology at the police academy for a number of years, is we were taught the post-curriculum, which is the statewide standard, was to issue about 1 out of 3. That's generally traffic units they're more 2 citations to 1 warning. Traffic units that are fully assigned to traffic, that's like the highway patrol.
Yeah.
Versus general municipal police and sheriffs, generally it's 1 out of 3.
It's puzzling to me, because if you took Atherton Avenue, James Avenue, and Frederick, I think every day you could get at least 3 tickets on those if you had police there.
What I think is interesting, having been here for 10 years, is the numbers I don't think have really changed a lot.
No,
they haven't. And there are a few interesting observations. For the month of October, although Officer Marks was on duty full-time, as well as in November, and no written warnings were given, although we do show 1 and 5. Essentially, there weren't warnings given. The number of citations didn't really change. The number of citations for October is 41 for moving and 55 for speed, and when you were giving warnings, in November, it's 42, 1 more citation for moving, and 51 for speed, which is 4 less. But you also gave 58 warnings and 72 warnings for moving and speed, respectively, in November, which means that essentially without giving the warnings, none of that moved over and became a citation. None of it was... Also, Chief Brennan and Chief Nielsen have repeatedly told us that they don't stop cars for approximately 10 miles over the speed limit here in Atherton. I mean, we've been told it's not 5 miles, as you said you could stop a car, but they just don't. And I know that there was an instance where a truck was rumbling through Park Avenue, and I remember it was going considerably over the speed limit, and they said, we don't even look at them for more than 10 miles over the speed limit. We just don't bother. So I don't know. I mean, you mentioned all of these standards, and we can't give you quotas. We can't. The industry standard is 1 out of 3. We're sort of in compliance with other jurisdictions, but I think all of it, frankly, is meaningless, because when you look at Palo Alto, when they actually give you a ticket for going 2 miles over on Embarcadero, and they do. That's a little different from us as a standard, ignoring people who go 10 miles over the speed limit. So 1 out of 3 doesn't sound like a good standard for us when we have that cushion of 10 miles an hour or whatever it is we're giving to speeders here in this town. Also, you mentioned that we're in line with other jurisdictions. I work in Redwood City, and I've yet to hear of anybody in the 10 years I've worked there getting a warning. Every single person for every single darn violation gets a ticket. Every single person. I would love to see the statistics and know who's getting warnings in Redwood City, because I see police stopping people all the time, and every time I've ever heard of anything, they're getting tickets. They're not getting warnings. So, and then the final point is, I don't think it really matters what these other towns are doing. I think what matters is what people here in Atherton are feeling, and they're feeling that their lives are in jeopardy as they walk down so-called rural streets. We don't have curbs, we don't have sidewalks for the most part, except in Lloyden. We're a unique kind of community where they're actually, sort of face-to-face with the street in most instances. And I think it should be handled differently. You are a police department that serves this community. You don't serve a broader community, and that is why the people of Atherton continue to want its own police department. And as such, I think we should be more responsive to the people of Atherton who have continually said they want these people ticketed. They want a greater police presence. And if Officer Marks is there full-time, I don't know what full-time means, because people are not seeing police with red lights ticketing people. They're not. When I see a police car with a red light ticketing people, I would say in the last 2 months it's been Menlo Park, not Atherton. I don't know that I virtually never see an Atherton police car ticketing anybody. I've seen them when they were stopping trucks on Middlefield for truck stops, but not for ticketing or even the so-called warning. You don't see them. And considering we have so many problem areas, that red light, as someone here said, makes a lot of difference to the other 100 cars that pass by the next day in how they're going to drive. And I don't think we're doing a good job. And I think this has been, I don't know that anybody who's ever referenced this subject has ever said differently in 10 years.
Yeah, the thing statistically still bothering me. We in December we had 82. Let's say we had 90. If you add up the written warnings and the citations, we've got 6 policemen. That's really 3 a day that we're giving. That means a policeman is giving a speeding ticket every 2 days. That's what the statistics say, and that seems kind of unreasonable to me.
And I just want to say that the statistics really don't seem to have changed, and I've only been on this committee for a couple of years, and you're certainly not the only police chief who sat there and told me, yeah. I see so many opportunities. I've seen Atherton PD go by crime in progress. Someone breaking the laws with traffic and not doing a damn thing about it. And he's not going off anywhere. He's not in a hurry. He turns it in and doesn't, I can't say I know for sure what he's doing, but, we've all seen when the opportunity for someone to get nailed is, and it's passing by a lot. And not just Hope Plain, it's all over this town. And there's the running joke among everybody is, you don't get a ticket in Atherton. It's not, you don't get a ticket in Atherton. We're the laughing stock of the peninsula. You can do whatever you want in Atherton traffic-wise. You're not going to get a ticket. That's what our reputation is. And it's embarrassing, among other things, because I'm constantly complaining about how unsafe it is for me to walk my children in front of my own home. And at the same time, we're arguing about our police force, what we're going to do about it. And we have a police force that doesn't enforce traffic, which is our number one problem. It is not crime. It isn't a lot of other things that Palo Alto and Redwood City deal with. It's traffic. And, there's a lot of other BS that goes on, I understand, but this is a big one. And I just think the enforcement is 2 fatalities. That's painful to talk about in this little town. And I know that the enforcement probably wouldn't have made a difference then. But if we had a reputation, if RPD had a reputation of nailing people, as I said to the last chief, the way that Mill Valley in the 70s did, or a lot of other towns in the Bay Area did, things would be different around here. We wouldn't have half the town in here every 2 months complaining about how we feel unsafe on our streets.
I think we have to be concerned when we have a hearing on a different issue, and yet essentially a different issue. We have at least 2 homeowners talk about clutching their garbage cans for safety.
Somehow, these statistics have got to change, I think, Mike. There's something wrong with these statistics. An officer giving a ticket every 2 days, that doesn't seem to make any sense. And that's what these statistics say.
Are these warnings given, 52 warnings or whatever, are they, you think the vehicle's going a little bit above the speed limit, so you're telling them to slow down? Is that it?
No, well, part of it goes back to what the traffic commissioners will allow in court. So that's always been the threshold, but each county is going to be set differently. Our commissioners always would like 10 miles.
But you say it's up to the officer's discretion.
Yeah.
They stop them for speeding, basically, but they're not speeding fast enough to get a ticket, right?
No, that's 2 different things. It could be both. So it could be 20 miles over the speed limit, and the officer will stop someone, and depending on the reason why they're speeding, it might be something they'll if they've had a good driving record and never had a ticket in 30 or 40 years, they might get a warning, or if there's a good reason for it. If it's not a good reason, then they might get a citation. That's where the discretion comes in. So it doesn't just mean that it doesn't meet the threshold for issuing a citation. It doesn't mean you can't stop someone below what the commissioners tend to want or will want in traffic court. It just means you won't issue a citation for that. You'll give a warning.
The mechanical defects and so on. The most flagrant violation in Atherton, and it's a safety issue, people laugh. Other communities, you don't see it. Every other car is a new Highline car, has no front plate. And that could be stopped as a warning to say you're speeding and you have no, and if they give you any problem with whatever, you can tag them with a no front plate. But you can get on any of these streets. I can't believe it. You go up and down El Camino, the Redwood City people or Menlo, they all have front plates. Atherton, they don't believe in front plates, which people laugh. That's not a big issue, but it is a big issue. It's safety issues. It's an accident or a hit run or something.
One of the other things is we've only got 1 motorcycle police officer, and yet we've got many motorcycles. And I would say that one of the things we should consider is training another motorcycle police officer, because motorcycles, in my mind, are very, very effective. You don't see them quite as much, and they can enforce speed better, I think, than cars. And we've got all these motorcycles sitting there, including a beautiful BMW, which I'd love to have. And I think we should use them. And if it means training and another policeman to ride motorcycles, I think we should go ahead with it.
Well, I'd love to ask the question, what's a valid reason that one can give for speeding?
Yeah.
But I can't imagine, unless it's a, an illness-related emergency.
My wife's in labor.
You're on your way to the hospital, even that,
I
labor
had
lasts a
someone
long time.
pass me on Oak Grove as I was driving past Nativity School, driving 25 miles an hour, passed me. And then when I pulled up next to him at Oak Grove and El Camino, I said, "What the hell were you thinking?" He said, "I'm late for a funeral." I'm not exaggerating.
He'll be
I'm not taking that
if
out.
he keeps going.
And if he's going to cause somebody else's, and that really is what he said. And he was very angry at me for saying anything to him about what he did. Passing me on a street like that in front of the school because I was driving the speed limit.
Well,
it goes on too much.
Yeah. I walk around Lindenwood every day. And, I wave down at least 2 cars every day. They usually give me the finger. But nevertheless, they're not speeding. I mean, I'm a pretty good judge of speed, but these people are doing over 40 miles an hour, and some of them are doing over 50 miles an hour on James. And, as I say,